tonight.
Call the meeting to order, please. Supervisor Collins, would you lead us in an invocation?
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for all that you've given us and the peaceful transition of our government this past weekend. We also ask you for the guidance and wisdom to continue to lead this county for the benefit of our citizens. And Lord, please take the family of Hunter and Hunter himself into your heart and show him the love that you are so gracious. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Vice Chairman Ewing, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand, face flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the agenda, Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no changes.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda before you?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Supervisor Ewing. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is adopted. Consent agenda, Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd offer tab E, which is the Parks and Recreation Commission report.
Is there any questions, Mr. Riley? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Supervisor Lofton and a second by Supervisor DeHaven. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda, tab E, is approved. Citizen comments. Mr. Riley, did anyone sign up?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Jay Martz.
If you'd please come forward, give your name, magisterial district, limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. I'm Jay March from the Gainesboro District and Chairman Schickel, members of the board. Happy New Year. As you might guess, I'm here once again to repeat myself, a continuing mantra of fiscal responsibility and lower taxes. Despite continued public comment, numerous petitions, and citizen input, there seems to be no movement from the board nor an explanation as to why we have not returned or reduced our property tax rates back to the 0.545 where it was last year before the large budget surplus that we had. I would imagine that almost every citizen in the county received a smaller paycheck in the new year because of the fiscal mismanagement of the federal government. I will bet that the outcome of the current General Assembly session leads to higher taxes, even though we had a surplus in the Commonwealth for the last 3 years. It appears that in the Commonwealth we have a surplus, we spend it, and then the legislatures and the special interests complain that we aren't spending enough. Transportation seems to be the afflicted sector for this session. Please do not emulate this behavior. I attended the school board meeting last week and heard the professional presentation delivered by Dr. Savine. He makes a compelling case for the $7.1 million increase in the school budget. Frederick County should be pleased with his selection as superintendent. He is good for the public schools here, and he is a proper advocate. However, as best I can tell, this is the largest budget increase ever requested, all for salary increases. I'm a little befuddled that after spending $20 million on a new transportation facility, which was a #1 priority for previously, in the past few years, we can find no money in the budget for buses, even with a surplus. I would ask you to give this school board budget proper scrutiny. Most of the statistics and charts presented to the public provide comparisons back to 2009. Please look back just a little bit further, and I think you will see large increases in funds and small increases in student population. I believe the county government is accountable to the taxpayer. We entrust our children to you, and we deserve a good education for a fair price, like all government services. I had another comment about Supervisor Ewing, but I will withhold that. So I thank you for addressing the board this evening. Thank you very much.
There is no one else, Mr. Riley?
We have one other speaker, Joy Kirk.
Please restate your name, magisterial district, limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Joy Kirk. I'm the president of the Frederick County Education Association and a resident of the Back Creek District. Earlier, you had the opportunity to hear Dr. Sovine's budget proposal. I would like to publicly express my appreciation to the members of the school board and Dr. Sovine for the support they have shown the employees of Frederick County Public Schools. I know we were all disappointed last year when we were unable to receive a raise. However, we greatly appreciated the bonus we received in our November paychecks. I thank you, the Board of Supervisors, for your continued efforts in working with the school board to ensure that Frederick County Public Schools is a division that retains and recruits in all positions employees of outstanding caliber, and we ensure every student an excellent education. I thank you for giving consideration to fully funding Dr. Sovine's proposed budget. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else, Mr. Riley?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any Board of Supervisors comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the minutes of the regular meeting, January 9th, 2013.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The minutes of the regular meeting, January 9th, 2013 are approved. Now, Mr. Young, if you join me. And I might ask that Barbara A. Klein, Tina C. Renner, and Stephen E. Richmond join me also. The Employee of the Month Award Program recognizes the county's employees as an important and valuable resource. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, it is my pleasure to present a team of employees from the Frederick County Maintenance Department for consideration as Employees of the Month for January 2013. The team's loyalty and commitment, along with the countless hours of labor, helped to control and limit severe amounts of water damage inflicted upon the North Kent Street building as a result of Hurricane Sandy. Without the team effort from Barbara A. Klein, Tina C. Renner, and Stephen E. Richmond, the total cost of repairs to the building and equipment would have been much more severe. This team went above and beyond expectations as they stayed throughout tonight to continually move equipment and use shop vacs and carpet cleaning equipment in an effort to keep up with the incoming water. This team is to be commended for their initiative and dedication. We'll now entertain a motion to approve the maintenance team of Barbara A. Klein, Tina C. Renner, and Stephen E. Richmond as Employees of the Month for January 2013.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor DeHaven and a second by Supervisor Lofton. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The Frederick County Maintenance Team is hereby recognized as the Frederick County Employees of the Month for January 2013. The Board of Supervisors extends its gratitude to this team for their outstanding performance and dedicated services and wishes them continued success in future endeavors. Barbara A. Klein. Thank you. Tina C. Renner. Thank you. Stephen E. Richmond. Thanks, sir. All right, Chairman, Citizen Committee appointments for 2013. Some explanation, I think, is in order to the board. I am procrastinating on those appointments. I still want to work with the chairmans. I think we are at a time when an influx of new folks to our committee structure is warrant a look at, and unfortunately, there's a shortage of people. It's not that the people there have done a bad job, but I wanted to take a fresh look, and so it will not continue past next month, but I would like to go ahead and make one of those, and that's Dory Green to the Personnel Committee. And the rest, I want you to examine your committees, and I want to have a talk with you before the next meeting about, is it time to do some change, because they've been static for a long time. And it's no reflection upon the people that are there, but we need to consider this. And so if you'll bear with me, we will proceed through it. Committee appointments. We have the Extension Leadership Council Red Butter. Are we ready?
I have a lead. I'm working him, wearing him down, but I'm not ready tonight.
All right, Parks and Recreation, we're not ready. Board of Equalization, we're not ready. Chapter 10 seat as a county representative. We had maybe a lead there, but nothing come through.
We're still working with Mr. Collins.
Turn me down so far. It's the
We
beard.
have no committee appointments for this month. Next is the request from the Commissioner of Revenue for a refund. Mr. Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're in receipt of the Commissioner's request dated January 3rd, 2013, to authorize the treasurer to refund Luckstone Corporation the amount of $4,502.99 for refund of personal property vehicular tax from 2009 through 2012 and registration fees on 2 vehicles that were duplicated in 2 jurisdictions. While these vehicles were used very temporarily in Frederick County, they were registered and housed in another jurisdiction. And pursuant to the provisions of Section 58.1 of the Code of Virginia, we would request approval by the Board of Supervisors.
Questions of Mr. Riley? If not, is there a motion to approve the refund?
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of the refund.
We have a motion by Vice Chairman Ewing to approve the refund. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Collins. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Collins?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes. Mr. Riley, does that conclude that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next we'll move on to the Finance Committee. Supervisor Ewing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance Committee met January 16, 2013. Item 1, the sheriff requests a general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $300,000 for overtime costs. Local funds are required. The committee recommends approval of $100,000, and I so move.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor Collins?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes.
The IT director requests a general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $25,000. This amount represents a Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development grant to complete a community telecommunications plan. No local funds required. The committee recommends approval, and I so move.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Collins?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion passes.
The IT director requests approval of a new phone system for the NRADC, Public Safety Building and County Administration Building. Total cost of the project is $650,000. Approval of the project will require a general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $517,400. Includes general fund portion of NARDC costs and an NRADC fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $221,000. The IT committee approves the request. Local funds are required. The committee recommends approval, and I so move.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Collins?
I was at the Finance Committee meeting and I heard the IT presentation. However, with the amount of funds that we're expending here, I'm wondering if we shouldn't have the IT director actually present why we need the phone system. I understand why we do, and I'm not objecting to the new phone system, but I think that we're going to spend I think when we say we're going to spend $650,000 for a new phone, I think maybe some better explanation might be in order. That's just my opinion. That's my feeling.
Mr. Chair.
We missed at the committee meeting.
Excuse me?
What did we miss at the committee meeting as far as the justification?
Well, I don't think we missed anything at the, I'm comfortable voting for it. That's not the issue. The issue is that it's such a large amount of funds being spent on a phone system. I've heard some objection to it, and I've tried to explain to some individuals and some citizens why we're doing it. But of course, not all citizens came to the Finance Committee meeting, and not all representation is presented in the local media about why we're doing the things we're doing.
Well, if I can help some, it's 3 buildings. The The phone systems, in some cases, and the parts are over 10 years old. The system needs to be replaced because it's not working. And for us to prolong that much longer could put us in a situation, primarily the public safety situation, that we have no communication. And obviously, as a manager, you would love to present this in phases, phase it in once, hopefully some systems are newer than others, but the technology that was installed when we built the public safety building was 6 years old when we put it in. And then when you deal with NRADC and that building being built in 1990 and the technology associated with it, we've got an old system. And we cannot find the components that we need to fix the system. So there is some urgency to this, to trying to get it done. And Mr. Lofton, if I've missed anything on that, you can help me, please.
No, I think you've summarized it fairly well. And I think Mr. Raleigh points out the most important thing is the fact that we have had problems. The end of life for some of these things came in 2010, and it has been exceedingly hard for the IT director to find spare parts. And as Mr. Raleigh again has pointed out, that probably my biggest concern is the fact that the public safety building, without proper communications there, that is one of the more important issues that the phone system has to deal with. And so I think our IT department has done a great job of receiving the bids, scrutinizing the bids, coming up with the lowest cost phone system we can get. But again, it is for 3 buildings that all systems have come and gone. The end of life is out there. And we really need to get this thing in the works, because if we have another failure, we could be down for days if we can find a part.
I didn't see our IT director hiding behind the sheriff over there, so I was, no, I agree with you. I know that the system at NRDC is a dead system. That's patchworked, glued together, duct tape and baling wires. I have no problem with the appropriation of the money. Please misunderstand me, but it's a large chunk of change, and I think we've explained it well enough for me.
Supervisor Collins, I'm sorry, I agree that probably the lay person out there who pays $20 a month for the phone is wondering why we're spending this kind of money. But again, there are necessary design features in this phone system that allow us to provide service to the citizens, and it's critical that we have something that's workable and something we know we can repair quickly if it does go down in the future.
I think Mr. Lofton covered all of my bases that I was concerned about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, a few comments from me. I was disappointed in the Finance Committee meeting that there was not a detail of what was being purchased provided. That information has been provided, is in our packet, and did satisfy me, but I was disappointed that it came through Finance without that attached and a better explanation of what it was, rather than a flyer from a vendor about phone systems. But I am also satisfied at this point in time. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and Mr. Banks, please correct me if I talk out of turn here, but I think not only are we replacing a system with a system that's very functional in today's environment, but also gives us the ability to provide even more services to the citizens in the future should we decide to do that. Would that be a fair assessment?
Often, let's have Mr. Banks come forward, if you don't mind. He did just get here, walked in on the conversation, so appreciate you being here tonight. Now, if you'll tell him what you want of him, repeat, please.
Well, I think just a matter, Mr. Banks, of letting them know that obviously the phone systems we have are end of life, they're done.
Correct.
So we need to replace that, but we're going to replace it with a system that actually gives us some room for growth and added features that will benefit the citizens in the future just a small elaboration on that, if you would.
Absolutely. We were tasked with finding a system that would extend 8 to 10 years into the future to include the necessary network upgrades to support that system. I think we've done that. Obviously, we spent a long time through this process. I appreciate everyone who was involved because it was an extended process. We had people from outside the county take a look and use their personal time to take a look to make sure we made the right decisions. We feel very confident that this system will be scalable for technologies that come through in the future. As most of you may be aware of, the future is quickly coming upon us with video technology and things like that. And we built the network not to have that immediately, but to be able to scale that in the future without doing another forklift where we come in and have to throw away the entire system.
Thank you.
Mr.
Any other
Chairman,
questions, Mr. Banks?
Mr. Chairman, I might add to that, that some of the current equipment was purchased was almost obsolete when they installed it.
That's correct.
That's part of the problem. This time, you're getting equipment that has a lifetime,
Correct. That was
let's see, of about 10 years.
correct. Thoroughly vetted. It's technology that's been tested and true, but the components are fairly new. We feel confident they'll extend at least 8 to 10 years.
Any questions, Mr. Banks? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other discussion? We have a motion for approval and a second. Are we ready to vote? All right, Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion passes.
The Public Works Director requests a general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $452,347 for the design of the new Round Hill Fire and Rescue Station and Social Hall. The Public Works Committee approved the request. Local funds are required. The committee postpones the item, awaiting further information, so it'll be covered at hopefully our next Finance Committee meeting. Fire and Rescue Chief provides additional information as requested on the Revenue Recovery Program. The committee recommends approval of the program, Revenue Recovery Program, and to get it on the floor, I'll make a motion that we approve it.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second the motion, but I have a comment as well, so.
We have a second. Discussion.
If I may discuss this with you, if that's appropriate. Mr. Collins and I spent a fair amount of time Monday night with the Fire and Rescue Association attempting to tell them where we are with this project. I think to a person there that evening, they're not ready for this proposal to move forward quite yet until there's some clarification on a few items. Probably the biggest item is, can we define debt service? And debt service, they understand from the meeting, should not be associated with bricks and mortar, but they would like the ability to have the ability to buy equipment and replace it, meaning primarily ambulances and transport vehicles that are associated with this program. And if debt service could be defined as vehicle replacement or EMS vehicle-related replacement, it would go a long way towards them going back to their companies to explain the amended MOUs that have taken place at the Board and Finance Committee level so that we can get some closure to this. And that was something that they would very much like, hopefully, some guidance from the board on, that capital is not bricks and mortar, but capital would be vehicle repair and replacement that is related to the EMS function in each company.
I know, Mr. Riley, after the Finance Committee, it was in passing, but I heard one of the main players mention the fact that he had hoped that there would be a work session with the board. Perhaps that's a good way to deal with this.
I would like to, but I don't want to prevail on your time in budget season, but that's very much what they would like to do.
All right, as board members agreeable to that, we have two choices here. You can withdraw your motion in your second, or we can vote it down. Which would you?
Let's
I'm
withdraw the
afraid
motion.
voting it down sends a wrong message.
Thank you.
Let's withdraw the motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then the chairman will, by consensus of the board, ask Mr. Riley to convene a work session where we'll hash out some more items. And it would be a good time to have more discussion if there are more items to hash out.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead, Supervisor DeHaven.
Could we ask, Mr. Chairman, that we try to really work on the definitions that we're looking for here? We mentioned vehicle replacements, EMS vehicle-related replacements. I don't know, are those transport vehicles? What other vehicles might be included in that definition? Could we work some on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
I gave something to our county attorney that after discussing with some of the other members, a draft to kind of encapsulate what they're talking about. And it was EMS licensed equipment, so not just because it's an ambulance, but you also have pumpers and ladder trucks that come to car accidents, which is part of the EMS service package. So, but we're not talking about brick and mortar. The member association all agreed on that. So I think they're just looking for that one part of the MOU, one line of that MOU to be spelled out a little bit more clearly. As far as the 50-50 split of the revenue, that is passed, and I think we're all on the same sheet of music. It's just that there's that one aspect of the memorandum of understanding that I think they're having, and I don't want to even call it an issue. I think there is just some clarification needs to happen. I think we just need to have a round discussion. I don't think it would be a very long work session.
And they would like the work session because it's convenient for them because they're not constantly going back and forth to their companies trying to get approval of amended documents. They'd like to do it once. So the work session is a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, my only comment is, this has been on the table for so long. I would hope we can have this meeting in a reasonable
I think
time.
we definitely want to keep it with the board. We don't need to go
Yeah.
send it somewhere, but it's either in a regular session. I have my doubts now as I listen if it warrants an evening or a time when everybody has to come to a work session if it's down to a few points. But I'm willing to do whatever.
Well, I don't want to rush this issue this evening. I would take advantage of the work session. Let me hear from members as to what we need to do to tweak it, to make it right. We can share those with those representative companies, and then when we come together, we should be focused on those issues. The other ones,
Would want to assume that a work session would lead to some consensus that would travel back to the association and then come to us, and only go back someplace else if the association coughed. Would that be what would happen?
I think that's fair.
Okay. Everybody, all right, did you rescind those motions?
I didn't hear the second rescind, but
Why don't, just for clarity, why don't you move that we hold a work session with the Fire and Rescue, is it the association or the committee or who?
Let me defer to Mr. Locke for a second. Which group would you like to meet in work session?
Probably be best if you came up. The question is, who do we have a work session with?
I would say it would be the members of our work group that's put this together and worked together over the last 2 years, but I can check with President Price for the association and find out exactly how he wants to handle this, but, I'm assuming it would be the representative of the work group, which is a representative from each company that was on the work group that worked on this over the last 2 years. That may be too many. That's 11 people. And 12, 13 if you include myself and the co-chair. If you prefer something smaller, actually, and if I may, if I could go back and perhaps draft up a third revision based on the last one that the county attorney did and forward it up, we could look at it electronically, and we could do it electronically, may be able to, unless we can and make them in some impasse that way. It may save us all a meeting. If I can.
Well, I'll speak for the board and say that we're willing to meet with some part of the committee or the association or all of theirs, whoever it is, to try to resolve any outstanding issue, and it would be good to know before the meeting what's outstanding.
Okay.
And we'll see how far we can get in the work session, and Mr. Riley confirmed, it sounds like, depending on what that is, that it might travel back to the association and back to the board, so that we know that we're all talking about the same thing. But if you tell us that's not necessary, we'll find out if
No,
that
a
works.
meeting's fine. I just didn't want to, you know, a meeting would be great because that way everybody can bring their voice to the table at one time. These representatives have represented their companies through the process, and so I think that would be the best way to do it. If we don't want to do it electronically through chasing revisions around, we can do it at a table.
We'll leave that up to Mr. Riley to arrange. Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we schedule a work session with our company's association.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Collins. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, the last item on my agenda, or presentation, is item number 6, which is information purposes only. The Finance Committee Chairman presented a memo concerning the FY 2014 budget, and the Finance Director provided a draft budget calendar. That ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a Planning Commission business, is a public hearing, and we're in good shape. The 2013-14 Capital Improvements Plan. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. This is a public hearing item this evening. The Capital Improvement Plan for 2013-2014 has gone through a variety of iterations and review through the Comprehensive Plans and Programs Committee and the Planning Commission. Of course, we've had a discussion here previously too. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the Capital Improvement Plan at the beginning of at the beginning of January this year. More importantly, they found it in conformance with the county's comprehensive plan. Again, that's the role of the Planning Commission in reviewing the CIP to make sure it's consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. This year's CIP contains 86 projects and continues to reinforce that connection between the comprehensive plan, the capital improvement plan, and of course future rezonings. If necessary, we can go through the individual projects if questions come on up following the public hearing, but of course it follows the typical pattern, which includes all of the individual projects from the different departments that have been vetted by those entities and their various boards and citizen groups. It also includes 4 maps which identify the location of the projects and, of course, a narrative of each of the individual projects. Again, Mr. Chairman, the Planning Commission recommended approval at their meeting at the beginning of January. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Board of Supervisors may have at this time.
Questions of staff? Supervisor Lofton.
I notice under the spreadsheet there with all the CIP requests enumerated on those, it says that the county contribution per fiscal year. That's not entirely accurate, is it? Because it appears that there are projects there that our contribution might be a small match to that. It appears that the total cost is there, not the county contribution. That's correct.
So we kind of carried forward what the individual folks put forward. And again, that doesn't mean that the board is actually budgeting for these particular requests. It's certainly a planning document. I think more importantly, in some cases, it really identifies other funding sources that are available.
Other questions? I hear none, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now conduct a public hearing to consider the 2013-2014 Capital Improvements Plan. CIP is a prioritized list of capital projects requested by various county departments and agencies. Plan is created as an informational document to assist in the development of the county's annual budget. If adopted, the CIP is a component of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against the 2013-2014 Capital Improvements Plan CIP? If so, would you please come forward, give your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Jay March, Gainesboro District. I'd like to make a couple comments about the capital improvement plan. First off, I would like to say, wow, 86 projects, $923 million. I will say the Planning Commission and the departments do good, detailed work outlining the plans in this 2 to 5 to 10-year window going forward. I think it's an excellent document for planning purposes. A couple comments on some areas. Frederick County Public Schools projects. I've reviewed this, the SIP, and I've read a couple articles in the paper that outline some of the requirements for their #1 project, the Frederick County Middle School. I'm a little perplexed by one aspect of this project. I do not understand why the county and the school board cannot determine what to do with existing to-be excess property until the next big construction project is complete. We have several examples of this in the county. The Stevens City Schools, the Gainesboro School, the Indian Hollow Transportation Facility, and now this middle school. It would seem to me that if there is no longer a need or a requirement for these buildings, that we should strive to get the structure and the property back into the private sector as opposed to leaving it unused or vacant. If returned to the citizens or the business community, it would most likely generate tax revenue. I would ask that you actively plan for the excess property disposition as enthusiastically as you do for all these new projects. As it goes on Parks and Recreation, there appears to be many great projects in here for Parks and Recreation. I would ask that going forward that you look at user fees, grants, and donations to become a larger source of revenue for these great projects. Handley Regional Library projects. As I mentioned with Parks and Recs, I would hope that you look toward user fees, grants, and donations to begin funding these proposals. Additionally, perhaps we could couple any new construction with proposals from the school board. Perhaps consider combining school libraries with these library projects. In fact, let's get Parks and Recs in this discussion too on these large county projects. Fire and Rescue. My only comment in this area has to do with increased government involvement in what has been a volunteer-centered organization. I worry that with additional and more county funding of construction and with the fee-for-service proposal, using this revenue to add additional salaried employees, we will eventually diminish the community involvement. I think government encroachment usually has unintended consequences. And I think we have a great volunteer organization with our fire and rescue, so be aware of unintended consequences. So thank you for the opportunity to address the board, and I would congratulate the Planning Commission on a great document.
Anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing on the 2013-2014 Capital Improvements Plan. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the plan as written.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Collins to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Ewing. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the 2013-2014 Capital Improvements Plan is approved. Next is a public hearing on an ordinance amendment, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 4 agricultural and residential districts, et cetera. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Staff is proposing a number of revisions to the RP Residential Performance Zoning District, along with other corresponding zoning ordinance sections such as landscaping and buffering, definitions, and supplemental land use regulations. Now, overall, the proposed changes are intended to make the requirements, first of all, easier to understand in regards to the format. Second, provide additional flexibility in terms of the housing options provided within the ordinance. Three, to update the ordinance with the current needs of the community, as well as number 4, to bring the ordinance into conformance with the 2030 comprehensive plan. Excuse me. Now, the majority of the modifications within the ordinance actually really just brings everything into a new format. There's a lot of strike-throughs, but a lot of that text is being moved into tables, such as you see on the screen, so just to point that out. Now, this ordinance has been through a number of discussions. It first started back with the DRC back in January of last year. They discussed it twice. It was then at a joint work session in May, Planning Commission June. It was in front of you in July. There was again another work session in November, and then you all discussed the ordinance at your December 12th meeting, and it was sent to public hearing. So I'll just run through what's entailed with some of the changes. First off, the introduction of district regulations. As I stated, there's some changes to the intent permitted uses as well as conditional uses. There's changes to the gross density and multifamily housing tables, open space and recreational facility requirements. There's a change to the addition of heights for other uses not currently specified in the ordinance. Now, a lot of the changes that you see are contained in Part 402. This is a dimensional requirement for the specific housing types. As I stated, there's a lot of format changes. There's minor changes to some of the single-family options to add setbacks for decks and unroofed structures. There's also changes to single-family detached cluster, zero lot line. There's a number of changes to the single-family small lot to bring it in line with what you can see on the screen. It's just a detail of what would be permitted. There's a couple housing types proposed to be deleted, such as the the duplex, the atrium house, and the weekly townhouses, and there's some minor revisions to the multiplex. There's a number of changes to the townhouse requirements, such as addition of back-to-back units. There's a structural increase from 35 to 40 feet, as well as some other setback changes to be able to do what you can see on the screen to your left. And this is just the details, including the agenda as far as the height change to bring it from 35 to 40 feet, which is more in line with how they're currently constructed. There's a number of changes to the garden apartment, and as far as setbacks, parking, increase in height. These are just some details of what would be permissible under the new ordinance. There's a proposed new housing type called the multifamily residential building. As shown, this would only be permitted in areas designated by the comprehensive plan as neighborhood villages, urban centers, or planned for high-density residential uses. Again, this is a detail of what would be permitted under that housing type. There's some minor changes to the age-restricted multifamily. And then Part 203, these are the landscaping revisions. There's a number of minor landscaping and buffer changes, new plant types, planting procedures. There's some revisions to the separation buffers, such as the elimination of the internal separation buffer. There's some minor changes to the road efficiency buffers. And then under Part 101 and 201, this is the definitions. There's a new definition proposed for the building height, a new definition of multifamily buildings, and then there's a minor change to the setback requirements under the supplemental to bring it in line what's being proposed with the rest of the ordinance. So in conclusion, as I stated previously, this is an effort to make the entire ordinance easier to understand, provide flexibility, bring it up to date with the current needs, and conformance with the 2030 comprehensive plan. This is an ordinance that we've been working on for really the past year. We've been in contact with a number of engineering firms, development companies to get their support. I believe there's a letter in front of you from one such company giving their support on the ordinance. So in conclusion, the Planning Commission would recommend approval at the public hearing on January 2nd, and tonight we are seeking a decision from the Board of Supervisors on these proposed amendments. I would be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now conduct a public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 4 agricultural and residential districts, Part 402 RP residential performance district, Section 165-402.01 intent, 165-402.02 permitted uses, 165-402.03 conditional uses, 165-402.04 number of uses restricted, 165-402.05 gross density, 165-402.06 multifamily housing, 165-402.07 open space requirements, 165-402.08 recreational facilities, 165-402.09 dimensional requirements, 165-402.10 phase developments. Article 2, supplementary use regulations, parking, buffers, and regulations for specific uses. Part 203, buffers and landscaping. Section 165-203.01 landscaping requirements. Section 165-203.02 buffer and screening requirements. Part 201, supplementary use regulations. Section 165-201.02 setback requirements. Article 1, general provisions, amendments, and general use conditions. Part 101, General Provisions, Section 165-101.02, Definitions and Word Usage, proposed revisions to update the Residential Performance RP zoning district. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against these ordinance amendments? So would you please come forward, give your name, magisterial district, limit your comments, 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Evan Wyatt with Greenway Engineering. We've been monitoring the process since it began for the 402 revisions, and we've been keeping our clients that are in the residential development business apprised of what's been going on. The consensus of those groups of individuals and companies is that they see this as a positive change. They see the opportunity now that the urban development area has been better defined to provide efficiencies in the development of that area. Building footprints are getting smaller, so the idea of trying to create more internal livable space, some of the building height allowances help them achieve that. Some of the abilities to renoodle the setbacks, whether it's for building frontage or for a deck extension, or positive things for flexible design. So I'm here tonight on behalf of those clients that we represent to advise you that they're supportive of this and they think it's a good idea. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. These revisions are before us to 1, easier to understand, 2, provide additional flexibility in housing options, and 3, up to date with the current needs of the community, and 4, in conformance with the 2030 comprehensive plan. We've seen it many times. I must admit that every time I read it, I see something different. But it is time for the board to take action. Supervisor DeHaven.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for adoption of the changes.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Collins. Any discussion? I would hope that we would find a way to, the parts that are a change and not a clarification, that we recognize which ones work and which ones don't. Anyone else have a discussion? Then we'll vote. Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the ordinance amendment is approved. Board liaison reports, are there any? All right, then we'll move on to citizen comments. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the board on any topic? If so, would you please come forward, give your name, magisterial district, limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Come forward.
Good evening. My name is Dodie Stottlemyre, and I'm with the Shawnee District. I really would have liked to have known a little bit more about this in order to get up and tell you. I really thought that it was kind of restrictive for property owners on some of these ordinances, but I really hope that there's a little bit better clarification to come. Thank you.
Any other citizens would like to address the board on any topic? Seeing none, we'll close citizen comment portion of the meeting. Board of Supervisors comments. Are there any? Supervisor Ewing.
Mr. Chairman, move for adjournment.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.